At 75, I stood at the base of the tallest mountain I had ever seen. The wind was biting, the air was thin, and my knees, well, let's just say they weren't as cooperative as they used to be. Everyone told me I was too old to climb it. My kids said, "Dad, you're crazy." My doctor said, "Be careful." Even my best friend, who's known me for 50 years, said, "Why now? Why not just enjoy retirement?" But deep down, I knew I had to do this, not just for me, but for anyone who's ever been told, "You're too old." This is the story of how I climbed that mountain, and what it taught me about life, fear, and the power of never giving up. Let me take you back to where it all began. It was a regular Tuesday morning. I was sitting in my favorite armchair, sipping coffee, and flipping through an old photo album. There it was, a picture of me at 35, standing on top of a small hill with my kids. Back then, I felt invincible, but now, at 75, I felt invisible. Society had this idea that after a certain age, you're supposed to slow down, stay home, and just enjoy the quiet. But I didn't want quiet. I wanted adventure. I wanted to feel alive again. And that's when I saw it. An ad for a hiking group for seniors. The destination, Mount Kilimanjaro. The challenge, 19,341 feet of pure, unrelenting elevation. My heart raced. My mind screamed, "You're too old for this." But something inside me whispered, "What if you're not?" I didn't tell anyone at first. Not my kids. Not my friends. Not even my wife. I just signed up. It felt like a secret mission, something just for me. But as the days went by, the reality of what I was about to do started to sink in. I wasn't exactly in peak physical condition. My idea of exercise was walking to the mailbox and back, so I started training. I bought a pair of hiking boots and started walking around the neighborhood every morning. At first I could barely make it to the end of the street without getting winded. But slowly, day by day, I started to build up my stamina. I watched YouTube videos on how to pack a backpack, how to use trekking poles, and how to survive at high altitudes. I even started doing squats in my living room, much to the amusement of my dog, who thought I'd finally lost my mind. When I finally told my family, the reactions were mixed. My daughter looked at me like I'd just announced I was joining the circus. "Dad, you're 75. What if something happens to you?" My son, ever the pragmatist, said, "Do you even know how to climb a mountain?" But my wife, bless her heart, just smiled and said, "If this is what you need to do, then I support you." That meant the world to me, but not everyone was so encouraging. My best friend John, who's always been the voice of reason in my life, said, "Why now? Why not just enjoy retirement? You've earned it." And he was right. I had earned it, but I didn't want to just enjoy retirement. I wanted to live it. The night before I left, I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing with all the things that could go wrong. What if I couldn't handle the altitude? What if my knees gave out? What if I got lost on the mountain? But then I thought about all the things that could go right. What if I made it to the top? What if I proved to myself that I was still capable of doing something extraordinary? What if this was just the beginning of a whole new chapter in my life? With those thoughts swirling in my head, I packed my bag, kissed my wife goodbye, and headed to the airport. As I sat on the plane, staring out the window at the clouds below, I couldn't help but reflect on my life. I thought about all the times I'd played it safe, all the dreams I'd put on hold because it wasn't the right time. I thought about my father, who had always wanted to travel the world but never got the chance. And I thought about my grandkids, who were growing up in a world that often seemed to value youth over wisdom. I realized that this climb wasn't just for me, it was for all of them. It was my way of saying, life doesn't have an expiration date. You're never too old to chase a dream. When I finally arrived at the base camp, I was both excited and terrified. The mountain loomed above us, massive and unyielding. But as I looked around at the other seniors in our group, each with their own story, their own reasons for being there, I felt a surge of determination. This was it. The journey was about to begin. And little did I know, it would change everything I thought I knew about life, aging, and the power of the human spirit. The first day on the trail was humbling. The air was thinner than I expected, and every step felt like a battle against gravity. My backpack, which had seemed so light at home, now felt like it was filled with rocks. But as I looked around at the other seniors in our group, I realized I wasn't alone. There was Margaret, a 72-year-old grandmother who'd survived cancer twice, and Tom, a 78-year-old retired teacher who'd never even been on a hike before. If they could do it, why couldn't I? The first few days were a mix of awe and exhaustion. The scenery was breathtaking, rolling hills, dense forests, and the occasional glimpse of the summit in the distance. But the physical toll was real. My legs ached in ways I didn't know were possible. My back protested with every step, and then there was the altitude. By day 3, I was gasping for air, my head pounding like a drum. I remember lying in my tent one night, shivering from the cold, thinking, what on earth am I doing here? But every time I wanted to quit, I'd remind myself why I started. This wasn't just about climbing a mountain, it was about proving to myself that I was still capable of doing something extraordinary. The real test came on day 5. We were just a few thousand feet from the summit, but the air was so thin, every step felt like a marathon. I remember stopping, gasping for breath, and thinking, this is it, I can't go on. But then I looked up and saw the sunrise, pink, orange, and gold, lighting up the sky like a painting. And in that moment, I realized something: life isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about facing them head on, even when you're scared, even when you're tired, even when everyone tells you it's impossible. One of the most surprising things about this journey was the bond I formed with the other seniors in our group. We were all so different, different backgrounds, different stories, different reasons for being there. But we shared one thing in common: a refusal to let age define us. Margaret, who'd survived cancer, became my cheerleader. You've got this, Jim, she'd say, every time I looked like I was about to give up. And Tom, the retired teacher, had a way of making us laugh even when the going got tough. If I can do this, he'd joke, anyone can. Their support kept me going, even when my body wanted to quit. As we climbed higher, I couldn't help but reflect on my life. I thought about all the times I'd played it safe, all the dreams I'd put on hold because it wasn't the right time. I thought about my father, who had always wanted to travel the world but never got the chance. And I thought about my grandkids, who were growing up in a world that often seemed to value youth over wisdom. I realized that this climb wasn't just for me, it was for all of them. It was my way of saying, life doesn't have an expiration date. You're never too old to chase a dream. One of the hardest moments came on day 6. We were crossing a rocky ridge, and the wind was so strong, it felt like it could knock us off the mountain. I remember clinging to the side of the trail, my heart racing, thinking, this is it, I can't do this. But then I heard Margaret's voice behind me. One step at a time, Jim, just one step at a time. And that's what I did. I focused on putting one foot in front of the other, not thinking about how far I had to go, just about the next step. It was a lesson I'd carry with me long after the climb was over. No matter how big the challenge, you can always break it down into smaller, manageable pieces. By the time we reached the final camp before the summit, I was both exhausted and exhilarated. The mountain loomed above us, massive and unyielding. But as I looked around at my fellow climbers, each of us battered but unbroken, I felt a surge of determination. This was it, the final push. And as I laced up my boots and prepared for the climb, I knew that no matter what happened, I'd already won. Because I'd proven to myself that I was still capable of doing something extraordinary. And that, my friends, is a feeling you can't put a price on. When I finally reached the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro, I didn't feel like a hero. I didn't feel like a champion. I just felt grateful for my body, which had carried me this far, grateful for my mind, which had refused to give up, and grateful for the people who had believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. As I stood there looking out at the world below, I realized something: age isn't a limit, it's just a number. The only thing holding us back is the story we tell ourselves about what we can and can't do. The view from the top was unlike anything I'd ever seen. The clouds stretched out below us like a sea of cotton, and the sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold. But it wasn't just the scenery that took my breath away, it was the realization of what I'd just accomplished. At 75, I'd climbed a mountain, not just any mountain, but one of the tallest in the world, and as I stood there surrounded by my fellow climbers, I felt a sense of pride I hadn't felt in decades. It wasn't just about reaching the summit, it was about proving to myself that I was still capable of doing something extraordinary. As I sat on a rock, catching my breath, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey. I thought about all the times I'd doubted myself, all the times I'd wanted to quit. I thought about Margaret, who'd cheered me on every step of the way, and Tom, who'd made us laugh even when the going got tough. And I thought about my family, who'd supported me even when they didn't fully understand why I needed to do this. This climb wasn't just about me, it was about all of us. Everyone who's ever been told they're too old, too weak, too anything to chase a dream. I remember one moment in particular, just a few hours before we reached the summit. It was still dark, and we were hiking by the light of our headlamps. The air was so thin, every step felt like a battle. I was exhausted, my legs were shaking, and I was ready to give up. But then I looked up and saw the stars. They were so bright, so clear, it felt like I could reach out and touch them. And in that moment I realized something: life is like climbing a mountain. It's hard, it's messy, and sometimes it feels like you'll never make it to the top. But if you keep going, if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you'll get there. And when you do, the view is worth every step. That climb taught me so much about life. It taught me that fear is just a feeling. It doesn't have to control you. It taught me that the hardest part of any journey is taking the first step. And most importantly, it taught me that it's never too late to chase a dream. Whether it's climbing a mountain, learning a new skill, or simply deciding to live life on your own terms, the power is in your hands. So what's your mountain? What's the thing you've always wanted to do, but told yourself you're too old for? Maybe it's traveling to a new country. Maybe it's starting a new hobby. Or maybe it's just saying yes to life, even when it feels scary. Whatever it is, I want you to know this: you're unstoppable. Age is just a number. The only person holding you back is you. So what are you waiting for? The mountain is calling, and trust me, the view from the top is worth it. If this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs a little motivation. And if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more stories like this. Because here at Unstoppable Seniors, we believe that life doesn't stop at 60, it just gets better. So what's your next adventure? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you on the next journey.